Welcome back to the Pearls and Perils podcast. I'm your host, Peta-Kay, and in today's episode, we are talking about love. I'm going to talk a little bit about my own experience in love and marriage. So whenever I meet people and they're like, oh, you're married, they'll always have so many questions, especially when they know how old I am. And I'm 31, but I've been married for 7 years, 8 years in September this year. So yeah, if you do the maths, I got married at 23. Now, at the time, I didn't feel young, but now when I look back on it, I'm like, I was actually really young. Like, I was 23, my husband was 24 when we got married. And it's so funny because at the time, I didn't feel young. You know, people that knew me, not many people, to be fair, nobody discouraged us from getting married. There were some people that are like, oh, you're so young. But again, I couldn't see the age that they were seeing. But of course, now that time has passed and I meet people that are 23 and I look back and I'm like, whoa, I was actually married at that age. I can see the stark difference in the level of maturity I had at 23 and some of the 23-year-olds that I've met. And I do think a lot of my maturity was boiled down to life experience and things that I've gone through. I've not had an easy life. I've had to pretty much fight. All my life I've been fighting. And now I'm in an era where I'm like, I don't want to fight. I don't want to be the strong Black woman. I want to be soft. I want the soft life for me and my homegirls. That's what I want. But honestly, I just think there's so many things I've learned along the way. And there are lots of things that I did prior to marriage. Now looking back, 7 years, almost 8 years in, which is insane, that I've been married for almost a decade. And most of my 20s I've been married, it sounds crazy to say. But do I regret getting married young? Short answer is no. But the reason why I can say that is not because my marriage has been perfect. At the same time, has it been something that I'm like, oh my gosh, like I've been going through it, it's been so hard? I'll be honest with you, no. Like, marriage has not been easy, but I would definitely not say that it's been hard. I would say that for me, one of the hardest parts of marriage is just learning to do life with someone else, learning to find a medium ground and to compromise. Because sometimes, we all think that our way is the right way. And being a woman who is very ambitious, is very driven, I have my goals and I have the things that I want for myself. And also being with someone who's also ambitious and has their dreams and aspirations. I think the most difficult part a lot of the time is coming together to make that work, but also learning how to have conflict and disagreements in a healthy way. And for me, marriage has matured me so much, not in a life way, but I'd say, I don't know if that makes sense, but I feel like you'll get what I mean eventually. I think marriage in itself, this is what I mean, has helped me to mature emotionally. Being married has taught me how to learn to communicate about things that when I was single, I never had to communicate about. When you're with your friends, you're with them, you meet up occasionally, or you may even see each other all the time, but there's certain scenarios you're never going to go through with your friend. And I'd say that being in marriage confronts insecurities, traumas, expectations, hopes, dreams, fears, all the things that sometimes you never see in your normal platonic relationships or even relationships with your family. Marriage and being in that kind of intimate relationship will definitely fester and bring up things that you probably didn't even know was there. And I would say, this is why I'd say for me, marriage has really matured me emotionally. It's helped me to learn how to articulate my feelings. I've always been the person that people would come to me, telling me their whole life story. I've always been the agony aunt from a young age, from primary school, secondary school. All my friends would always come to me for advice. And I'd also find that sometimes strangers would just feel so comfortable to speak to me and to tell me things. And I'm like, yo, I don't know what it is, but I've just always naturally been very good at building a rapport with people. And I think that's just one of the gifts that God has given me, to be able to create a space where people feel comfortable to open up and to talk to me. So this is also something I want to bring to my YouTube channel as well. It's been a few weeks. I've been working on my consistency. I've been sick for like the last 3 weeks. I'm still a little bit nasally, but I'm just trying to push through the funk and push through the, all the views aren't looking like how I want them to. But regardless, I'm just pushing myself to show up. If you are a woman who does desire to get married one day, I'd say some of the things that are really important to think about and consider when you are looking for your life partner, or if you are in a relationship and you're trying to assess, is the person that I want to build my life with? I think sometimes we get so caught up in the aesthetic side of things. We get caught up in, the height, what he looks like, the car he drives, his job. And whilst the aesthetics and the physical appearance is important, I'm never going to say that, looks doesn't matter, because we are humans. And if you can see, looks does matter, right? They say love is blind. But I think not sometimes, it's important to look beyond the surface, to look beyond the biceps, to look beyond the six pack and what you can see, or look behind the car that person drives. And I think where many people go wrong when it comes to relationship is that they delay having those difficult conversations, really stripping back and looking at the core of that person when you're knee deep in the relationship and feelings are there, you're attached, families are entwined, or maybe you started to have children, or you've moved in and you're living together. And then it's so much more difficult when you get to that stage where you've invested time in the relationship, you have deep feelings for that person, to then accept that, we're not actually compatible. So I would say assessing compatibility when you are dating is so important. Are we actually compatible? Are we actually equally yoked, right? And I think this is the aspect people ignore. You may be a Christian, if you are a Christian watching this, and you're like, yeah, I want to marry a man of God, I want to marry a woman of God. That doesn't mean that just because someone's a Christian that you're going to be compatible to them. You're a Christian, but you're human. You have your own personality. You have your own life experiences, your personality type. There's so many things that can impact whether you are actually compatible with someone. Not just enjoying the same hobbies, but looking at the core of who you are as people. Are those things compatible? The direction of life that you both want to go in, are you compatible in that? Because along the way, something that I have noticed a lot in marriages that haven't lasted the test of time. And when I say the test of time, I'm talking about till death. Because you don't know if you're going to be married or you're going to live until you're 100 years old or 90. You may not. But for me, when I decided to get married, I'm seeing it as this is till death. This is till one of us dies, whether it's going to be me or it's going to be you. But I'm making this commitment because I want this to be a lifelong, however long our life is going to be together. And I think sometimes we forget that marriage is more than just having a beautiful wedding. It's a lifelong commitment. And throughout life, you are going to go through different changes and transitions. You're going to go through losses. You're going to go through wins. You're going to go through so many things. And I think one of the things that's so important, like I said, compatibility is important, but it's also looking at that person for who they are. I think as women, a lot of the times we can kind of get carried away with things and we start seeing that man like a project. A man is not a project, okay? He's a man. And one thing that I said to myself internally before I got married was, if my man never changes and who I'm marrying is just how he is and he doesn't change, would I be okay with that? Flaws and all. The things about him that irritate me, the things about him that I would ideally like to change or tweak, if they never change, would I be okay with that? Would I still love him? Would I still want to be with him? And for me, the answer was yes. And this is something I tell women all the time, whether I'm going to a bridal shower or someone asks me for advice, I say the same thing. Because I think sometimes what we do as women is we lock into that person, but we have in the back of our minds, he would just be perfect if. Or we see that potential of, he's got so much potential to be this or that. But what if that person never reaches that potential? Would you be okay with that? And I think some of the frustrations that some women then encounter later on in their relationship is when that person never realizes that potential that you saw in them. And you start to then build up resentment towards that person. And even the man, poor thing, he probably doesn't even know why you're feeling resentful. And you then have these situations where that person's like, this is who I've been. And then that underlining frustration is still there. But sometimes people aren't able to articulate or even connect the dots like, oh my gosh, I'm actually just mad at the person I thought you were going to be, but you never became. And I think this is why it's just so important. If you are about to say I do, if you are dating someone and you're assessing, are we compatible? Could we be lifelong partners? You need to be thinking about this. If that person never changes, They stay who they are right now. There's no more growth. There's no more excelling, or they work on this or they work on that. Flaws and all. Would you be satisfied in that relationship? And if you can't honestly say yes, do not base everything on the potential of what you hope to happen, because the reality is that person may never realize that potential. And then it's also unfair to them for you to be, sort of dangling this expectation onto them that maybe they don't even want for themselves. And I think this is one of the key things that sometimes we don't talk about, or we don't even realize that we're doing it. It's something you can naturally do it subconsciously. But I think it's something to definitely consider if you are dating, if you are in a relationship, if you're in a place where you're just not sure about whether that relationship is really right for you. If you're having this nagging doubt of something, it's really important to actually try to figure out where is that doubt coming from. One of the fears that I had before getting married was like, I'd heard so many horror stories. I'd seen what friends had gone through in their relationships and people around me. And when you hear those stories like, oh, I had this friend, this happened. And I'm like, whoa, how could that happen? I don't want that to be me. But something I've come to realize is that a lot of times the signs were there. People can pretend, they can fake it, pretend to be a certain kind of way, but eventually the mask will always fall off. And I think sometimes the mask falls off, but we ignore it, or we try and play it down, or like, oh, well, it's not that bad, until you get to a point where it's just too much. And I think if you aren't already married and you are in that dating phase, or you've not made that commitment yet, that period is the best time to really assess, to really get to know that person and to see whether it's going to work long term or not. And regardless, there is always going to be an element of faith. There's always going to be an element of it may not work out. You're not going to know that. There's no 100% guarantee, even if you're compatible, that the marriage is going to work. That's the crazy part about love. And that's the part of love that requires faith. And for me, that is why I could not do marriage without God. Like, I couldn't do it because I have no guarantees that the man that I married is going to be the same man in 20, 30 years' time. It's unlikely. He's going to change. He's going to get older. We're going to experience different things in life. And again, those experiences can change the person. And yeah, it's scary. But I do think that if you build the right foundations, it can set your marriage up to succeed. And I think this is also sometimes the part that we don't invest in. We invest in the wedding, we invest in the celebration and the fun part, but we don't do the nitty-gritty work to set our relationships up to succeed. There's so much more that I want to explore, that I want to talk about as far as it comes to marriage. But I want to know from you guys, what sort of topics surrounding relationships, marriage, would you like me to cover? Let me know in the comments if you're able to leave a comment on the platform you're listening on, or simply read the show notes and reach out to me, and you can drop me a DM on social media and let me know what topics you want me to cover in future episodes. If you've enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like or simply share this episode with a friend. If you found it useful, and I'm sure a friend would as well. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll speak with you in our next episode.